Today's episode is sponsored by 3 Days Till Christmas Fest, which is actually 5 days before Christmas this year. That's right, December 20th in Atlanta, Georgia at iDrum, an all-day festival which benefits Heal Palestine, featuring performances from To Forget, Novelly, Dim, Serade, Split Silk, Rosemary Nods Upon the Grave, 22LR, Guilt, How to Set a Fire and Why, Open Carry State, and a secret band. It's open to all ages and the doors are at 2:30 with music at 3. And there's food vendors on site. Contact @DimScreamo on Instagram for more information. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to sign up and support the show, read zines, get music sneak peeks, and so much more. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you. You're hearing Wither by This World Is Not Kind, also known as Twink, featuring my pal Jackie Bisson on guitar and additional vocals. The song comes from their new EP, Grief, which you can find at twinkscreamo.bandcamp.com.
It's gotta be when I played Guitar Hero when I was 10 years old. And it was probably What I've Done by Linkin Park. If there was one song that's like, hell yeah, like this is what I want to do. This is the dream. It was probably playing Linkin Park on Guitar Hero as a 10-year-old.
That's awesome. It's it's interesting to me. Like, there's there like I chat with folks that are closer to my age, and then I chat with folks that are younger. Chat sometimes with folks that are much younger, and there's an interesting thing that happens sometimes where people that are closer to my age, like if it's from a video game, it'll be the Tony Hawk series, right? But then like
Yeah.
people that are a little bit younger, it's Guitar Hero. And so it's it's interesting to me how like video games have played these roles in shaping people's like musical journeys, and like just how a few years difference in sort of the video game world have like changed where that came from, you know, like,
Yeah.
and it's I don't know, like I never played the Guitar Hero games. It wasn't like it wasn't a matter of snobbery necessarily, like, but I already could play guitar, so I just kind of thought like, well, I'll just play guitar, you know. But
Yeah.
but yeah, I was just like saying to my son last night, like who is 15, and just plays Dark Souls 1 through 3, just like pretty much constantly, like every single day. And I don't know how it came up, but I just like started like singing one of the songs from one of the Tony Hawk soundtracks, and I was like, you know, people now will never know the absolute chokehold that the Tony Hawk's games had on people during the late 90s, early
Oh
2000s, you
yeah.
know? And it was the same for Guitar Hero. It was like a phenomenon. And
Totally.
I don't even know, like, is it still a thing? Because like they tried to bring back the Tony Hawk games, like they've done the remasters. I got like the first remaster. I played it a lot initially. It was fun. I was like, hell yeah, but like I don't go back to it. But like, what's that like as far as like Guitar Hero goes? Do you still play? Like, are they still like pumping out games? Like, are they?
Um, that's a good question. I think I saw something recently about Rock Band, or maybe it was Guitar Hero. One of the two was trying to have a game coming out in the next few years. I know Fortnite Festival has like a whole Guitar Hero mode now, which is kind of crazy seeing like Fortnite, the shooter game, suddenly has a Guitar Hero mode in the year 2025.
Yeah,
But I don't know, it's awesome that people are getting into that.
yeah,
Like, I don't know. It's such a big deal for me getting into music. And like, if rhythm games did that for me, it's cool to see other kids get into that kind of thing. Like, it really did have a huge impact on my music taste. Like, growing up in the Midwest and kind of a cultural desert where you're not really exposed to anything except for what you hear on the radio, like, there's a lot of bands that I never would have found if I hadn't played those games.
yeah. Where did you grow up exactly?
Um, as a very little kid, I grew up in Michigan, and when I was about 8 years old, I moved to Iowa, and I've lived there ever since.
Oh, okay. Because you know, I know that y'all recorded with Tyler, and so I
Yeah.
was putting y'all in the Chicago area for, and I guess that's,
Oh, okay.
you know,
Yeah.
not exactly like that's just like, you know, that's on me, like just from not knowing, but like I guess that's not like far, but it can make a big difference. Like Chicago, it's like if you're in Chicago, you just like you're born knowing about bands, you know, but like
Oh, yeah.
but you know, like I was in a similar situation when I was, you know, a preteen and stuff where I grew up in a small town in Southwest Florida where like, you know, my graduating class was like 180 or something. You know, it's ridiculously like, you know, we had to have our own ways to find out about music and stuff too. But yeah, it's it is like it is interesting, like just like to think about like the, you know, the music that I've just listened to today and think like, okay, like you're kind of like one of your big things was this Linkin Park song. And, you know, when I was listening through y'all's stuff, like I was hearing things from bands that like and I mean this in the least snobby way possible, but like if I say this really reminded me of this band, now I don't even know if people would know this band, but like just say like some of the guitar stuff really reminded me of this band called the Hal Al Shaddad. Have you ever heard them?
I have not.
Okay, and you like I said, I mean that in the least snobby way possible, and like not trying to be like people should check them out, even though like back in the day people were saying that some of the people in the band weren't that cool. I don't really know their whole story, but some of the guitar stuff was reminding me of that in a way that like I couldn't. I was like, what does this remind me of if not that? And I couldn't place it. Where do
Yeah.
you think
Um,
your like influences come from as far as like who do you think, oh, I write guitar like this person? Is there someone that you could?
uh, I think when I was in college, I was really, really into like shoegaze and like black gaze. So I think like learning like Alcest songs and those Oathbreaker song I really like to play. Um, I feel like that stuff kind of influenced my playing. Like my first band I ever did back in high school was a grunge band. So uh, really simple like power chord basic stuff. I feel like that kind of bleeds through in there to some extent. What's the name of the band? There's a band someone's named once, which I didn't really think of until they pointed it out, but it was Maudlin of the Well. Someone pointed out the
Okay,
joy chord sound a lot like Maudlin of the Well. That was our last EP, Death.
okay,
Uh,
yeah, I can
um,
see that. I
I know
think
for this EP in particular, like the song I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, Steven. There's a lot of bark psychosis in the softer parts of that song. And especially with the trumpet, I was like showing Layla some bark psychosis songs, and I'm like, make it sound something like this.
yeah. Before we started recording, I was telling you about my my child who likes to come down and mess with my drums and stuff, and just generally set up like they just generally set up a jam area down here and get into all kinds of things, which like I'm over the moon about that. You know, like it is a little bit annoying sometimes when you have to come back and put your stuff together because you were like trying to record the next day or something, but like it's whatever, right? But they're really into like they play trumpet in school band right now,
Word.
so I was showing them that song off of the new EP, and they were like, "Cool," which is like that's about the best, you know. That's the best like. That's the most enthusiastic that you're gonna get out of them, like for right
Oh yeah.
now, you know. But I was just like, I thought I was like, this is so cool. Like they're gonna love this, and they were like, cool, you know. So yeah, that you know, these questions are just gonna kind of come all from all over the place, like because we're already sort of at that like none of this makes sense in any like linear fashion. But when you all started the band and like what and Layla comes on board or like I don't know how you know you all came together exactly, but what was the trumpet like automatically like baked into like we're gonna do this, or was it just like y'all were jamming and then Layla's like, hey, you know what might be cool? Like, how did that work itself into the equation?
So originally, before Twink started, Layla and I were having some jam sessions at my apartment for a cyber grind project called Left Hand Peace Sign that never actually became a band, but we were like throwing the trumpet in there because she had a trumpet and was like, "Yeah, I'll bring this over and we'll see what happens." And then when Twink started, it was like I don't think it was necessarily like, yeah, we're gonna have the trumpet, but it was definitely pretty early on that she was like, "Hey, I have this. We can put it in a song." And then the song "The Ghost of You" ended up being our first song. I think I actually wasn't there for that, but they were jamming the members of the band at that time, and yeah, it just kind of came to be from there. Now we have two songs with the trumpet, but I'd love to do more.
And you referred to the band as Twink, which was this was something I was also going to ask about.
Yeah.
When the band was named, was the acronym already front of mind, or
Oh yeah.
was it so was
It
it
was.
we are going to name our band something that makes this acronym, or like was it
Um,
happenstance?
so, like, we had already formed a band before we had even started to brainstorm ideas for a name, and then at some point, someone, I think it was Layla's girlfriend, thought, oh, I think she thought of the word kind because I think Layla might have been the one who thought of Twink as an acronym. Um, yeah, and so they ended up brainstorming "This World Is Not Kind," and when they presented it, the band were like, "Hell yeah, that's really funny." And we were gonna have a running joke of like, no one acknowledges that it's Twink, and that we just like act confused if people say the band name Twink. But eventually, it kind of came to the point where people were like listing us on flyers as Twink, and it's like, okay, we just kind of have to be Twink now.
Yeah. Was that before or after the Bandcamp URL? Because
That
once you put it out there like that, because that's
oh yeah,
like I showed my wife that, and that's my wife was like, um, my wife was like, was that on purpose? And I was like, I aim to find out. That's um,
yeah.
I couldn't really
It
be
was
doing my job
before.
if I didn't. I'm sorry, what were you saying?
It was definitely before. I think March of 2024 is when we played our first show, and then it was uh, the very beginning of this year that our first EP came out, and it was just like a few weeks before that we made the Bandcamp.
So, how did you go from like you're trying to start a cybercrime project with Layla to this band forming? You sort of mentioned that there have been like sometimes when people were playing and you weren't there. Did you come into this project where it was sort of already established, or how did this band come together as a whole?
Um, so I was one of the people who were there to start with. It was Layla, myself, our friend Charlotte on bass, um, our friend Ethan, who now lives in Chicago, I believe, on drums, and Brandon, our current drummer, was our second guitarist. And within just a few months of the band being a thing, Charlotte had to step out for health reasons. Ethan had moved. Glab ended up becoming our current bassist, and Brandon was like, I want to learn to play the drums. So we're like, okay, you can hop on drums.
Yeah. Did that come together pretty quickly? Like Brandon learning the drums?
Um, I'd say yeah, he was pretty quick to learn the drums. Layla, I don't know at what point she learned the drums, but she's a pretty talented drummer, I think. Just when she goes over and was like, "Here's some screamo beats," and I'm like, "Okay, guess she can play the drums too."
Oh, okay.
And I know our friend August has helped at some point. She's filled in on drums before for us, and she's helped us write some parts and songs.
That's awesome. And do you all live like in the relatively in the same area? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
we all live in Iowa City.
Oh, okay. Okay. Um, yeah, it's wild. Like, sometimes like you really just like can I don't know. I had a similar experience with guitar and drums where it was just like I always like you know I always like was had a good sense of rhythm or whatever, and I was always like doing tapping on this and that and whatever, and I never played any. And then a drummer got mad at me and was like, well, you do it then. And I was like, well, I didn't mean to, I didn't mean to make him mad, but I was like, do you really want me to like try to show you what I mean? And I went and did it. And I don't know. It's like, I know a lot of guitar players that can also play drums, and I don't know as many drummers that can also play guitar. So I don't know what that means. But also, like, I don't know a lot of guitar players that are like incredible at drums either. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, I just think I think I'm getting at like that. There's just different parts of the brain that are working there,
Hmm.
and sometimes like it's easier for one thing to translate to a rudimentary version of one thing. Then there's that hi hat. Then it is
Yeah.
the other way around. But yeah, I don't know. I do know some drummers that were like first drummers that are incredible guitar players. But anyway, yeah, was this more or less like your first band where you are like recording music and touring and stuff like that, or
Oh yeah, for
yeah?
sure.
So when the band first starts, is that the goal? Like, we're gonna record these songs. We're gonna like try to do like some tours and stuff like that.
I think kind of. I think our biggest thing when we started out was like we just want to play local shows because we like playing music and this is going to be like a fun thing. I think we all liked going to shows at that point, and for the most part, that's where we knew each other from.
And then it just kind of went from there.
Yeah.
How did you know Tyler, who ended up recording y'all and stuff?
Uh, Brandon, our drummer, knew Tyler, and
Okay.
Tyler still lived in, I believe, in Iowa City at that time, maybe just on the outskirts, but at least close enough.
Okay. So you all get a few songs and you start playing shows, and then like Tyler's like, you should let me record you, or how did that whole thing come about?
Yeah. Brandon one day during practice is like, "Hey, my friend Tyler says he wants to record us," and we're like, "Hell yeah, we'll take that for sure."
Yeah. Have any of you had experience recording like yourselves, or was this sort of like a big first for most of you, or all of you?
I think it was for the most part a big first for most of us. I know myself and our drummer Brandon both have solo noise projects, so we've done some like stuff like that, but it's definitely a lot different just making music on your computer versus recording a whole band.
Were you nervous about that, or did you all just sort of feel like,
Um,
now we've got the songs down?
uh, I think it kind of went in us thinking we were going to record ourselves as a live band and we just have the songs down. And then as it went along, we kind of figured out that we had to track ourselves separately. I think our first EP, everything was recorded drums and bass first, then I added guitars over that, and then vocals last. For this most recent EP, it was all guitar, drums, bass recorded at the same time, with a few exceptions for like some really hard transitions where we really wanted to get it clean for the recording.
So when you went in the first time, um, was that like which experience was? I mean, I assume the second time felt more natural because you're more or less just playing the songs like as you're used to playing them. What was that like for the first time when you go in? You find out it's not going to be like you thought necessarily. Did that like did that make the experience like more stressful in ways, or was it just like we're here, we're like this is what we've been working towards, like what was that experience like for you?
I think it was kind of stressful at first, like playing to a click track and like really just like we were not able to do it. We were not able to stay on time and like hear the click track and still know what's going on. And I think that's kind of the nature with screamo music is it's just a little more chaotic and live oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I had conflicts with work is why we had just drum and bass recorded initially. But once we got to that part, it was really like, okay, we're gonna build this piece by piece and we're gonna like figure it out. And a lot of the stress went away.
Mm-hmm. were you um were you double tracking, like were you doing like left and right guitars, or did you just do like
Yeah,
yeah? so
I
when
think I think probably every song.
so when you're doing like the first one, it's a bit more like you feel a little more like naked. You're like, oh, but then once
Oh
you've got
yeah,
that first one down, then you're just cruising, right?
I think yeah, a lot
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah. It's, um, we always had like when, in previous bands, whenever we would have a thing where we were tracking things separately, um, there was always like, nobody wanted to go first. Like nobody wanted to be
Yeah.
the first person to put something on top of the drums, because it was like
Mhm.
the more there was there, the more you had to, like ground you
Oh, for
and to
sure.
follow along. And yeah, I don't know. There was some fun times in the past where like one time the other guitar player was like, I'll go first because I do the rhythm parts, and they need to go down first. And he did one song, and like one like 2 minute song took him like 2 hours. He just kept like having such a and I don't remember picking on him or anything, but like the one of the bass player was a little bit, and he got really mad, and he was like, he took it out on me. He was like, "Well, let me see you fucking do it." And so I went in the next song and I did it in one take, which was really funny
Oh my
because
God.
because like I couldn't like if I was trying to be cocky and go in and do it in one take, like there's no way you know what I mean? I would have messed it up
Right.
too, right? But I was just like he was being mean to me for no reason, and I was just like, okay, and I'm gonna and I don't know. It was fun. It was funny. It's like that
Kind of
recording.
based it on.
Yeah, that recording experience was fine. It was fun, but like that was the most fun part because it was just like ridiculous. Um, but yeah, I don't know. Why did why did it work out so differently from the first time to the second? Was it just because of like the scheduling, like you talked about, to where like when you went back the second time, you more or less recorded lives, but I'm just assuming like in like maybe like in different rooms, but with headphones or something like that.
Um, I think we were mostly in the same room, in Tyler's living room, just with most of the band set up, drums, bass, guitar. And I think a lot of it was like the nature of the songs was like we kind of had to have everyone there playing their parts.
Oh, okay.
These were definitely a lot harder songs to play than our first EP. So I think it helped a lot just for us to like remember the song structures and everything.
So you're just like, how are you trying to like isolate the instruments, or was there just not that much worry about that? It was just like, look, we got to do this right, all of us.
Um, it, for the sections that we recorded, all three of us, it was kind of just like we all three have to lock in,
Mm-hmm.
and each song really took us quite some time. Um, we more or less spent like a whole day of recording for each of the three songs on the EP. Um, and then there were some parts like there's like the guitar opening on I think we're gonna have to kill this guy Steven, where it's just me and Layla recording. We did like one track where it's just guitar, one where we had guitar and trumpet at the same time. Um, yeah, for the most part, it's like locking in the three of us, and then the few individual sections where we could just record like one instrument at a time, which wasn't very many.
That is wild that y'all recorded the guitar and the trumpet at the same time. Like I
I
just
think it was like the way we wrote that part was kind of just me playing it over and over again while Layla improvised until we had like a progression that we were going to follow.
uh
And with no guitar, Layla was finding it really hard, like to even remember like what the whole progression is, which I'd like totally understand. So
yeah. It
I
so
think we just found that plus it helps me like with how I'm playing on guitar and how like the intonations of what I play.
Okay. Cause so there was no like she didn't like write like out sheet music. It was just like
Oh
we're
no.
going on vibes more or less. And like
Yeah.
if we're not both there and like owned in on what we're doing, then we kind of get lost.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. And that um yeah, that's it. There's a lot of times when you when I've had experiences where I've played with different people and they're like when I'll practice for a show or whatever, I'll like we'll run through the set a whole bunch of times, right? But I'll only do vocals on like the last one or two times because like I just can't do sit there and do vocals like all day. Like you can just play songs all day. It's no big deal. And sometimes people are like, yeah, I need the vocals to like really let me know where, which in screamo is weird because you know what I mean. Like
Yeah.
in other types of music it makes sense, like you're like, oh, here's the chorus, like I this helps me keep my space. So whenever I've played drums in a band, I always like I have like a system, you know, where it's like I I I I will have like specific drum fills or something that are like this is the fill for the fourth measure, and that's how I know I'm going into like the next thing, because otherwise I'd be right there with you where it's just like I have been playing this beat for however long and I do not know when it changes, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's especially like when y'all are recording like 6 minute songs that like not that all your songs are 6 minutes, but like when you have like a
Mhm.
6 minute song and you're like, okay, we all have to get this right, like at the same time, no punching in or
Yeah.
out. Yeah. Was that like obviously when you're doing a song like Car Crash, I don't remember the other title for that, but when you're doing that and it's 6 seconds, you're like, okay, no fucking problem. You just knock that one
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
But like,
Daddy issues, car crash.
yeah, yeah. Did you when you were recording, did you record the songs in like alternate orders? Because you're like, we need to get warmed up, so let's do a 2 minute one. Like, or did you record
I
them?
so
Yeah.
I think car crash probably was the first song we recorded for that
Okay.
EP, but I actually don't remember all that well
Yeah.
the order we did things.
Yeah.
Um, I think they had everything drum and bass tracked at first. So maybe that's a question I'll have to ask our drummer and bassist.
Yeah. So that's in like I don't I generally like I generally write an album like in like a line, like a straight line. It's like I know how I want it to start. I know how I want it to end, and I have a bunch of ideas, and I might make like a file where these ideas are sprinkled into where I think like the emotion of the overall piece of music is gonna be. So I'll create like like a sound like map, or whatever, and
Hmm.
and when I record, like I record them all in this the way that they're gonna happen too. And sometimes that works better than others. Like if I'm getting towards the end and then this is like the hardest drum beat that I have to record, like that's not necessarily the best. Like maybe I shouldn't have done that, right? But like
Hmm.
but that's just, I don't know, that's my process now. But I was just thinking like, yeah, if you're having like a really shitty time and you're like, we're really not getting this one, and then you have a song that's like really short and easy, like that would be such a morale boost, to be like, all right,
Oh
we
yeah,
we need a win, let's
totally.
get this one down,
Yeah.
so that would be fun for sure. How did like how do your songs sort of germinate like in the practice area and stuff to where like you end up with like, each one of your EPs has a song that's like 6 minutes and sort of a lot of instrumental and some trumpet, and you only have just the one 6 second song, but like how do your how does it come to where there can be these big differences in like approach to where like, okay, this is a really long one, this is a really, is it all a matter of like just letting things happen as they are, or do some of these ideas just come like into the space automatically, like, hey, we're gonna have a real short one, it's gonna be like this?
Um, so I think on our first EP, it kind of started more like we would come to practice and be like, here's a riff I have. And we just kind of practice around that riff and be like, what if we took it like in this direction or some other direction? And then the song just slowly builds itself from there until we have it a complete song. In the case of Daddy Issues Car Crash, it was like Layla was like, hey, I have this really, really short song. It's really easy. Here's the bass riff. And then I think we just figured out like guitar and drums in addition to that. Uh, for this last EP, it was kind of a big change from that, where we more or less came to songs with like, or more or less came to practice with fully fleshed out songs, and then everyone learned their parts over time. I think We're Gonna Have to Kill This Guy, Steven, was more or less written start to finish and didn't really change a lot. There's a soft part toward the end that was added after a few practices. I'm like, hey, I think this would sound better than it was. Um, Wither is pretty much exactly the same as when I first presented it to practice. And then the first song on the EP, Just Because Everyone Else in the History of the Entire World Has Died Doesn't Mean That I Will, Orange Soda, was our bassist Glab. Um, and then the very beginning of that song was actually the first song we ever jammed as a band. Um, we took that back and used that same riff. That was actually a song that never came to be. So I think it was really cool that we kind of turned it into a new song.
Yeah, finally able to work that part into
Yeah.
something. Yeah, yeah. I hate it when when you have something that is really like, it's like, oh, I love this thing, but I just can't make it work for anything, and then you finally do. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
yes, because I don't know. I have plenty of things where it's like I have one thing that's like, this is so like, this is the start of an album, right? Like
Hmm.
I have this one thing, and then it's just like, I don't know where. it just hasn't happened.
Hmm.
I've written like 10 albums since then, and it
Yeah.
just hasn't happened. Um, but yeah, it's really awesome when you can make it work out. I've done one thing where I forced it. I made it because I
Hmm.
obsessed over one thing for so long and tried so many different things with it that I finally just thought I need to like sort of cure myself of this. Like I need to like you know cauterize this wound,
Right.
and just use this. And it's cool. It worked out. Some people, I don't know. Like we've never played the song live, but some people are like, "This is one of my favorite songs of y'all," and I'm like, I don't really know how to like feel about that. Like I
Hmm.
wouldn't say that to somebody. Like I would just say, "Great, that's awesome, thank you." But like, yeah, like just from my end, I'm like, I don't. I don't know how to feel like that about that because like I'm happy it exists. I'm happy that I made something of it. The way that I got there was like so strange, But
Right.
that's music, right? Sometimes that's like sometimes it just informs like how you work later.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Um
Um,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
go.
just like related to that, something that's always like stuck with me for a long time. Like when I was a teenager, I saw like I don't even remember who said it. I think it was Alfred Hitchcock, but I could totally be wrong. Was like you can't be afraid to kill the baby. And like yeah, sometimes you have a part that's like your baby and it's like a beautiful part and it just doesn't work for the album or like EP or song that you're going for and you just like you have to kill it sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it just won't work for something, and then like alternately, sometimes like you can kill it in that way that like you just you just make it do
Oh yeah.
something. Like even if it like if it's gonna bother you that much, like just make it do something, and you're gonna be like,
Hmm.
this always felt wrong, but like I don't know, like I'm thinking about that now, and I'm like that's kind of cool too. Like if you like if you forced this thing to do something that you're not even sure if it worked, but then someone can come back to you and be like, that's my favorite thing or one of my favorite
Oh
things.
yeah.
Like you did something. And also like there's there's um there's an there's an aspect to that I am finding myself appreciating as well. Just like the fact that you made something that makes you feel uneasy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not
Yeah.
ever hearing this and being like, that sucks. You know what I mean? It's just like it didn't turn out how I imagined, but I also like I couldn't get it to do what I
Hmm.
imagined. Like as weird as that, sounds. But I don't know. Like I think different in different art forms like poetry and prose and stuff like that, I think that people are way more used to doing something that makes them uncomfortable, right? Because you're writing characters that you don't like and like don't agree with and stuff. So like you're
Right.
more used to that. But in music, I feel like it's less common, at least,
Yeah.
But I don't know. An interesting thought. I mean, surely like, there's types of music that are they lean into that more, like noise and stuff, for sure.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I don't know. Um, that's something. I don't know. That's interesting. I mean, and I don't know. I've always had this idea as well, where like I want to make an album where all the songs are bad, like,
Yeah.
and I don't know how, you know, like, not that it's like it's such a weird thing, right? Because like anybody could listen to any of my albums and be like, well, you're already doing that, you know? Like, it's because it's so subjective.
Yeah.
But like, if you purposely were like, I'm gonna make an album that's like bad, but the thing is, I'm gonna play everything like pretty well. It's gonna be consistent. It's just like I'm gonna make choices that don't make sense. And I'm gonna make like melodies that sound awkward and don't work, you know, and I don't know, like it. I kind of wonder if it's even possible, you know, like
Hmm.
to to make something that's bad on purpose, like without it being obvious, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know, you know, like you know how when like you know how in a movie or something, when the actor is singing along with a song on the car stereo and it's so bad that you're like, well, they're being bad on purpose. Or are they?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like that kind of thing. But I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we'll write that record later. Like you and I we'll FaceTime and we'll do it.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah. When you were talking before about like, you know, some of your guitar influences, like, you know, we sort of skipped over, you know, just by the nature of this sort of awkward conversation, just bouncing everywhere. We skipped over like from you're just playing guitar on Guitar Hero to like now you can actually play guitar. Like, how did you learn how to play guitar when you were first starting? Was it like YouTube videos, you know, friends showing you
Um,
stuff?
yeah, my senior year of high school would have been like very late, like probably like November, December 2016. My friend who I later started a grunge band with sold me a Squire Strat that he had for $100. Um, Restrung all the strings so that I could play it left-handed. Which funny little thing about this band, I'm not actually left-handed, but I play a left-handed guitar because when I started playing Guitar Hero as a little kid, I didn't know which way you were supposed to hold it. And just intuitively, I thought like, okay, my right hand goes on the net because I'm right-handed. And turns out that's not how you play guitar, but it's just always stuck with me. Anyway, I bought a guitar off my friend my senior year high school, and I just pretty much look up songs I like on Ultimate Guitar and YouTube and just like learn from tabs. And I think to this day, I probably could not play a clean scale without like messing it up a little bit and like having to figure it out because I've just always learned by looking at tabs and like, okay, like this is what this part of the guitar sounds like and jamming along to songs and that kind of thing.
Now that is super interesting to me that you just wound up playing left-handed the way you did, because I've always like what you said about, well, I'm right-handed, so my right hand. Like, it's like in my brain that also makes a lot of sense, because
Mhm.
this is where you need all the dexterity in
Right.
like in your your fret hand, you know? This is where you need the most coordination. And logic would say that that's, since you're right-handed, that's where you're more coordinated. So
Hmm.
that makes sense. And you know, of course, like anybody that like, you know, has someone show them like, oh, you know, you play like this, like that's, you know, we all get there in a different way. And so that really interests me, like, because you know, there's I've played with some folks that are left-handed, and of course we know like some of the most famous left-handed guitar players, Cobain and Hendrix and stuff like that, and like and just like I've known like people that were visual artists that were left-handed, and I've always felt like they are really coming to art, whatever kind of art it might be, from a different place. And like, you
Yeah.
know, there's so much to be said about the way that the sides of our brain like process different information and stuff. So like that, especially in your case, is super fascinating because, and I bet there's somebody who's versed in neuroscience and things like that that could like pick this apart and be like, well, this, and this. But like, it's like you're someone who like in all of these aspects of your life, you are very like it's left brain, right? Because that's generally the way that works. Like if right-handed, then you're I don't even
I
know
would
if
think
that's the
so.
way that works, but like but you're generally coming at things in this way. But then when it came to art, you turned it on its head automatically, and like that was more natural to you because of the way that you learned and stuff. um
Mhm.
I wonder what that like I wonder how sort of like the neurons or whatever in like in your
Yeah.
I wonder
No,
how.
I wonder this myself sometimes.
Yeah,
Like,
that's so interesting. And I feel like I wonder if that's like a if you have some you've tapped into some secret sauce because you've got
maybe
these.
I have.
I don't know, maybe, yeah.
I've never met another person who is right-handed but plays lefty. But like, I have met lefties who play right-handed just because,
Yeah, cuz
most guitars are right-handed,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it just becomes easier if you can play a right-handed
Mhm.
guitar. You're like automatically limiting yourself to like 1%, if that, of the guitars in existence that you can
Mhm.
play now.
And they're expensive if you can
Yeah,
find. Yeah. So, yeah, that's do you have a left-handed guitar now, or are you
I do.
still.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, yeah, my Telecaster is pretty much what I just use for everything in Twink. Actually, I
Mhm.
think it is the only guitar I've ever used for Twink, with the exception of one show we played in Milwaukee. I broke a nut off the top of my guitar, and Power Violence band who opened for us, Sublet was the name of that band, was kind enough. Their guitarist restringed his whole guitar to left-handed so that we could still play the show, which was like really awesome. I appreciated that so much because I was like so stressed, like, oh no, we're not going to play this show because where are we going to find a left-handed guitar?
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's amazing. Shout out to what was the band again?
Yeah, Sublet.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't even like I'm so I'm like I do it all the time, but I'm so like I'm always like I'm probably really messing up my guitar just by like putting the bigger gauge of strings on, let alone like throwing them all on upside down. So like,
Hmm.
yeah, that person's a real one for being like, you know what, the show's got to go on. Let's rock.
Yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
really appreciated that.
yeah, um, yeah. Was there ever any point where you were like, let me just try it the other way, and you were like, no, this is fucking weird.
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, when I was first learning guitar, I'm like, maybe I'll just like learn the way I should as a right-handed person, and like I just couldn't do it. Like the chord shapes felt so unnatural with my left hand that it's like, even with just like a few weeks of experience, I'm like, it's got to be the other way.
yeah. It's so weird too. Is like there's a ton of things that I can do pretty well with either hand. There's a ton of things. Like I can play drums. That wasn't a big like thing for me to get my hands working independently, etc. But there are like a few things, like just really weird things that like I cannot do. with my non-dominant hand, and it's weird things. Like I won't even like get into it, but it's like it's it it is really wild, like how you just you train yourself to do these things,
Yeah.
like no matter what they are, and they become second nature. And yeah, I don't know. I I'm really like I'm always like thinking about like, well, how would you approach this differently? Because like um, I'm always interested in pushing myself into another like part of like being creative that I'm not like comfortable in or whatever. So like I I could not like write a song as a left-handed guitar player. I mean, I could sit here and like act like I can make the shape, like, but I couldn't do that. But like, it does it does make me think like about like, you know, how could you like sort of put yourself in a position that just flip, like how could you
Yeah.
make your own brain, flip like that? And I don't know, a lot of
Yeah.
nonsense going around in my head right now.
I
Sorry.
I remember growing up, like, some days I would just be curious and I'm like, "I'm gonna write with my left hand today." I'm like, "I'm gonna train myself to be ambidextrous." And of course it didn't work out, but
Hmm.
I don't know. I've heard that you can do that if you practice hard enough. So I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm sure there's people out there who have accomplished it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the time and willpower to figure that out.
I mean, I've seen like artists who like write and like I've seen artists that like will paint with like both hands at the same
Mhm.
time and just wild stuff like that. And like there's lots of exercises for artists where they're like draw with your non-dominant hand, and it's fun. And you look at what you've done and you realize that like yeah, it's not even just like my physical competency with that hand, but it's like it goes as far as to like what my brain is telling, like how the
Mhm.
information is going from my eyes to my brain to that hand, and how that makes it different. And I don't know. I I I I don't sometimes I don't know why anybody listens to this podcast at all, because like I just sit here and my like I'm just like so fascinated with music and making music, and it must sound just like delirious. Like, but I find all of this stuff so fascinating, just like how like you know, in the 70s or whatever, people were just like, let's just take a bunch of drugs and like, and if that's your thing, like,
Yeah.
and let's just take a bunch of drugs and do music. If that's your thing, then that's your thing, right? But I'm just always like, what is the weirdest place that I could be at in my brain to where when I sit down to like make art, like it's a reflection of that. And
Mhm.
I mean, essentially, it's the same. It's probably like the same thing as like, except like I don't have an aid. I'm just like
Right.
trying to manufacture that experience. But
Yeah.
you all like you said that your first show was in March of 2024, and then
Yeah.
this year you've released two EPs.
Mhm.
So like I was, you know, just from like having like an EP that came out in January and then an EP that just came out like last month or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that's like whoa, like this band like really kind of came out of nowhere. But you all had been working towards this whole time. Are you in a position to where you just kind of like we write a few songs and then we record a few songs, or like Are you working towards like longer term goals now that you've sort of like got out there a little bit and like surpassed like your initial ideas of what the band was going to be?
Um, I think that's like a really good question that I don't even fully know the answer to. Because I know right now we're all pretty burned out of our last tour, and just trying to take a little break to like focus on other bands that we have. But we still have stuff that like we've jammed as a band and talked about doing. Like, um, I think one thing that's really been special for Twink is always going other directions. And like, what if we do a song that sounds like this? What if we do a noise rock song? What if we do a really sludgy song? What if like all these different directions that we can explore? And I think it's just kind of like we write some new songs as a band and we're like, let's put these out there. And when the time is convenient for us, we'll record it. That's kind of how our last two EPs, and then we have one single that kind of came out the same way. It was like we were approached by KRUI, the local college radio station, to be on a compilation album. So we're like, hey, we have this new song. We'll just record this new one rather than give them an old one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've already sort of like talked about like how there will be longer clean parts with like the trumpet and like and and things like that. But that was something also that like occurred to me where it was just like there's I don't know. I wouldn't say like I wouldn't call it like experimentation necessarily, although there is
Mm-hmm.
that in your music. Like, but it's just like you're saying how like you know being willing to try different things like influences like what way a song takes shape, etc. Right? Because like on
Yeah.
the first EP, like you like that like rat pedal or whatever is on the bass, like you're like when that kicks in some spots, you're like, okay, I'm not really sure like that this band wants to be like quote unquote like only a screamo band. Like you get just so much like fuzz and like sort
Mm-hmm.
of doomy kind of vibes and so like that's all good and you're like okay, and then like the next EP, like just from you know starting out, it's like it sounds like a bit more focused and like it sounds like it's more staying in more one lane, and then it's like, oh, there's that rat pedal again, or I'm not sure if it is
Yeah.
a rat pedal, but like that's what it reminds me of. And you're like, oh no no, it's still there, like this is a band that's just doing what they feel like doing when they feel like doing it. And I don't know,
Totally.
I appreciate that for sure. You mentioned other bands. Like, what are the other bands that some of y'all have going that you can, give a shout out to?
So oh, what is even active right now? Layla was in a band called Psyop that is no longer active, a hardcore punk band here in Iowa City. Um, I know she's recently started a straight edge band called Agitation that is yet to play any shows. Um, our drummer Brandon is also in a metalcore band, Angel Without Wings, who we just did a mini tour with to celebrate the release of this EP. Shout out Angel Without Wings. I think they're really fucking sick. Um, uh, I think Glab is in another band right now that hasn't played any shows yet. But they also do solo music as Glab too. And then I do solo music as Ransomware Installer, and our drummer Brandon does solo music as Ground Hum.
Oh, okay. So you're working on some more like solo stuff right now?
I am, yeah.
Yeah. What have you released under that name so far?
So a lot of the stuff currently released on my Bandcamp is I used to make music under the name Bezos Guillotine. Uh, and then I kind of was like moving on from that era of like, I don't know, I kind of look back on that music and think like it's kind of bullshit experimentation, but like I still have a big soft spot for a lot of that, even if I think like like I kind of have to make stuff that I think sucks a little bit to get to a place where like I feel like I know what I'm doing. Like everyone has to like suck at some point. Um, the stuff I'm working on right now is a lot different. I'm recording like some grindcore for that project and like more harsh noise. A lot of what I have now is ambient. I've done, excuse me, a couple film soundtracks this year for my boyfriend Eli has released some short films that I've done the soundtracks for, which has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed doing that.
Okay. And how do you approach a film soundtrack as opposed to like just a regular piece of ambient work that you're do you get to like do you have the film in front of
Um,
you beforehand and you're like, okay, this is going to work for these parts, or do you have like a script that you go off of? Or
so the first film we did, Iowa City Video Zine, which is like a local, uh, kind of what it says, video zine. People can submit to. They'll have different themes, and the last theme they did was just the word "yummy" and nothing else to go off of. So my boyfriend wanted to do like a cannibalism themed short like horror film around the song "Yummy" by Justin Bieber. So it was just like kind of flipping like this sweet pop song on its head into this horror film. So like I turned "Yummy" by Justin Bieber into like a noise dark ambient track. And
oh,
then the
okay.
second one we did was a film called Doll Parts that I acted in as well. And he was just like, I want one really silly, like happy, upbeat song, and then one like really scary song. Gifts was a big theme of that movie. That film was made as part of like a 48-hour film challenge, where they had 48 hours to make the whole film, the soundtrack, all of that. So yeah, initially it came to me with like those two ideas, this happy and scary one, and then I acted in the film and then went back to the two tracks I had started and like polished them up based on the vibes I got from the film we made.
That's awesome. When you were talking about the Justin Bieber song in particular, was that more of you doing a cover or like a remix?
That was a remix.
Oh,
So
okay.
that was done entirely in Audacity on our friend's laptop.
Oh, okay. Because you've also had one of the Twink songs remixed, and yeah,
I
that was
did.
super intense. How did that come about?
Yeah. So shout out Alice Smith, Bottom Surgery. Layla and I have made a couple remixes with her. She's just an internet homie. Um, Makes really fucking cool cyber grind and noise music on the Bottom Surgery project. And she was like, I think she approached us for a remix. I could be mistaken. It might have been Layla asking her. Um, but yeah, she did a remix for Traders. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really intense. I was like, I don't I don't know how to like. I was expecting more of the like original song to be filtered in here and there,
Yeah.
but like I when I was seeing what was coming from the original song and how it was being manipulated, I was like, yeah, I really appreciate like um the intent like
Oh
behind,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
love that.
yeah, yeah, it was really
I,
cool.
I really love like noise and like harsh noise music, and I love like hearing sample based stuff and how people will like repurpose a sample and like to the point where you can like barely make out the original. I think that stuff is really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a different it's such a different set of skills than like a cover song, you know? As although
Mhm.
like a, a cover song can do a similar thing where it's like I'm going to completely reimagine this. It usually doesn't,
Mhm.
you know? But I don't know. Um well, it's been really awesome hearing about like, the band and how y'all came together and sort of like, you know, um like where you're at now, as far as that and your other projects. You said that the band is sort of like, okay, we just got done with the tour, and so we're kind of like focused on other things. Um, I won't like ask my usual question, even though I sort of already did, as far as like, well, what's next, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
People will just have to stay tuned. But I do try to keep these about an hour, and that's where we're at now. But before we go, I do like to open the floor in case there's anything that we haven't talked about that you wanted to talk about before we take off. Like, is there anything that we missed or that you wanted to
Um,
just bring up?
yeah. So one thing, like an influence, I think like no one would probably ever guess with this last EP is the song. I think we're gonna have to kill this guy, Steven. Was like totally influenced by this Cartier God song, which is completely different lane from our music. He's like a cloud rapper who's been making rap for many years now. Had a song called Into Underworld playing San Andreas, I believe, and somewhere in the song he says all I see is red, and I'm like, oh man, that would go so hard for a scream over. So the first thing I wrote in that song was the all I see is red chorus because of a Cartier God song.
I I wrote a song back in like 1999, and oh, I can't remember the name of the song offhand, but the first lines in the song is all I see is red.
Oh, no
What
way.
the other
Awesome.
vocalist goes, all I see is red, and then like I just start screaming. I think it's called Memories of Blood, and so all I see is red. I think that's the one. And that was my conversation with Jackie Bisson. Thank you so much, Jackie, for taking the time to chat with me. Thanks to all of y'all for listening wherever you are as well. Don't forget to stop by patreon.com/humanmachine if you'd like to support the show. It's really appreciated. And until next time, take care and do good things.